Can I request the 3 winners to come on stage? AN Africa Evidence Network Winners 2023. On stage, please. Where did they go? They went out. If you are AILA winner 2023, your chair is empty. All right, I have all my winners. Good morning, everyone. This is the most exciting session for the Africa Evidence Network. It's session 21, where we are giving awards to our 3 Africa Evidence Leadership Award winners 2023. Just to give you a bit of background about the Africa Evidence Leadership Award, this award was launched in 2018. And in the period of 6 years, we had 10 winners and 13 runners-up. And just to show you how, when you win this award, you stay a leader. Some of these previous winners are in this room and they facilitated sessions and did amazing. Can I just make them stand just for a few minutes? Velia, Gloria, Fréjus, and Diane. These are our previous winners. The main aim of this award, when this was conceptualized, we wanted to showcase leaders that are influential contributors in this field, as well as raise the status of Africa in evidence-informed decision-making, because that is important to us. There are a lot of individuals that are doing amazing work across the continent. Therefore, how do we showcase them and show the world what amazing work is happening in the continent? I think by recognizing the impactful, insightful, and effective innovation work and service contribution that supports and promotes evidence-informed decision-making in Africa, that was it for us. And this award is very member-driven. I think we were just chatting right now to say when the voting opened, how the competition was so fierce between Nigeria and Benin. And Benin won. You know, I slept on Friday. I was like, what happened? As I look at the dashboard, things, the votes were coming, flashing up and down. And I'm like, the AN has never been vibrant like that time of the voting process. So this is an amazing process for us. We're excited that people are excited about what is happening in the continent. So Velia was our inaugural winner. and she has stayed glued to the AEN, like practically glued to the AEN. She won in 2018. And 2019, we had Mapula Changela from South Africa. She won this award as well. She's doing great things in the environmental space in South Africa. And Fréjus is here. You know, he's doing great as well in Benin. And then we had Diana. She's working for J-Power, and she's waving the flag of Kenya and making sure that work is happening very well. And for the first time in 2022, we had 3 winners. And we have 3 categories: evidence producers, evidence users, and intermediaries. And 2022, we had 2 Nigerian winners. You can see how vibrant the ecosystem in Nigeria is. Eukarya and Temitope, and Gloria was part of them in the mix. Tanzania was fighting, just to make sure that they are in that process. But today, it's about these amazing individuals. And I would like to call upon Rhona, our co-chair, so that she can hand over their shining trophies that they will take home and remember this day to say, I was recognized by the Africa Evidence Network, therefore I want to contribute the best way that I can in EIDM in the continent.
Thank you.
All right, our first awardee is Justina Onumah. She won in the category of evidence producer.
Thank you all so much. This is very humbling for me. And first of all, I'd like to thank my husband and my 3 girls. They've given me the space and opportunity to really grow. And without their support, I don't think I will be doing the things that I'm doing right now. And also a special thanks to Mapula. She actually invited me to AEN during the COVID time. So without her, I wouldn't have been a member of AEN. So everybody here who has voted and has the confidence in the work that I do, thank you so much. Also thanking my institute, the Science and Technology Policy Research Institute, for all the opportunities that they provided for me professionally. Thank you all. And this award to all of you. Thank you.
Our next winner, Deo-Gracias Houndolo from Benin.
Thank you very much. This is very exciting, right? And I have a few words to say. My first word will go to Lawrence. He may not know this, but he is the one who believed initially and nominated me. Thank you very much, Lawrence. And, you know, a day like this, you remember when you started your very first step in this field of EIDM. Thanks to 3IE that believed in me, gave me a lot of responsibilities. And without 3IE, I'm not sure I would have been recognized and get this distinction. Thanks to 3IE and all my colleagues. And during the voting process, I remember all those who have been my students were organized just to make me win. I don't know why. I would really like to say thanks to all my students. There are 1,000 plus now. I'm really grateful for this. And to AEN and all colleagues here around, I can promise you that you won't be disappointed. Thank you.
It's a celebration.
Our third winner goes to Josephine Watera. She's from Uganda.
A dedication to last throughout the years. So bring your good times and your laughter too. gonna celebrate and party with you. Come on now. Celebration. Let's all celebrate and have a good time. Yeah.
Oh my God. Thank you, AN members, for this award, for the many years of service and the different engagements that I've undertaken in this space to be recognized. It's so humbling. I also want to thank Lawrence, my nominator, for making me to be seen. I want to thank people that have worked in this space under the Uganda Evaluation Association and the Parliament of Uganda, who also made me to be seen by the world. And other players like Ian Goldman, he's not here physically, he's my supervisor for my PhD, who has pushed me every other time there's an issue that relates to evidence use. He's always there in my space. And lastly, Ruth, who was the brain behind this AEN and getting us to this point where we have this award. I really thank you so much, and I want to thank God, and just to promise you that work just got started. Thanks.
Let's celebrate. It's all right, baby.
Thank you very much, everyone. Now that you know who the champions are for 2023, look, be connected to them, see what the work that they are doing, see what the AEN is saying about them. We're going to follow them for the entire year to make sure that they're doing great and they're supported in being great champions in this space. So thank you very much, everyone, and congratulations to our Evidence 2023 winners.
Me. Them is excuse, they slap me. Same people when I turn, they go yab me. Alright, tell me where then they run on the hustle and they try sustain. Every Saturday, from Ilajet down to Costain. I beg, no carry my blessing run. Today now you, tomorrow fi be my turn.
Okay.
Show me love, no go show me python. We be the same for Oluwa Kingdom. So me say, celebrate me.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare for the next session, we're having session 22. What does the evidence future look like? You remember when we had session 3, when the panel for women, experienced women were chatting, they said they were handing the baton, and this is it. This is the group of young leaders that they're handing the baton to, and the session is going to be facilitated by Fréjus. Over to you, Fréjus.
Thank you very much, Siziwe, and congratulations again to our winners for this year, AILA winners. Can I invite my panelists to join right from the beginning? Charity, Hazel. Hello, are we together? Just sit. Okay. Thank you very much. As Ciciwe has mentioned, we are toward the end of the conference, and it's such a great honor for me and for us to be sharing this this panel. Is the last technical panel. The last one is the closing. So we are very honored and excited to be sharing this this session. It's session 22, and I will start by sharing some very quick themes and messages that we captured since, I would say, Tuesday, starting from the event of the Youth League and also the Real Conference starting on Wednesday. What were the key themes and messages that we can see coming through? It's not a full report. That's not the aim, but it's just about sharing what we've been discussing so far. Can I have the first slide, please? As you all know, we discussed about different topics. We actually started with a very great presentation and keynote speech from Adeline on decolonization. That was one of the key topics that we have. Next slide, please. Great. So we really discussed around during the last 3 days about what we really mean by decolonization. Questioning the concept, making sure that we understand what it means and what it implies for the evidence-informed decision-making ecosystem in Africa. We agreed together that it's very important to embrace it in our practice and make sure that we use that kind of concept to, okay, great, thank you, to address power, equity, diversity, and inclusion issues. We also stressed the need of embracing all those concepts and aspects related to evidence-informed decision-making in African ways. Localization was also an important topic. We discussed about how we should make sure that we use our local networks, how we make sure that we mobilize local communities and ensure that local content is included in all the work that we are doing. Learning also was a very key topic that emerged from our discussion. Learning through collaboration, making sure that we don't remain in our silos, that we share our experiences across the different contexts, being geographical contexts, cultural, political. We also agree that it's important that we expand how we listen to organizations, who do we listen to, and also who do we engage with. We are all here as, I think we are just around 200 people, but as you know, we are more than 5,000 people in the African Evidence Network, and there are even more people working in the evidence ecosystem. So it's critically important to make sure that we have a diversity in how we engage with the different people. And ensuring about that diversity, we should also be broadening our communication approaches. We had very interesting presentations and panels around how we can make sure that we use very innovative communication channels, for example, to ensure the participation of local communities. Now we want to propose some key actions that were discussed around the localization topic. As you remember, that was one of the key discussion themes that we that emerged from the conference, and we want to make sure that we capture some of the key action points around the localization concept. The first one is increasing and claiming the agency and autonomy in this space, making sure that we first recognize that there is something locally that can be valuable to our work, that we celebrate our local success. We also discuss about the need to make sure that the agenda on which we are working is locally driven, because we can talk about localization, driving more funds to local organizations, but if those organizations are still working on agendas that are not relevant to the local context, we are still very far from what could be called as localization. And for us to be able to do that, we need to increase our understanding of our own ecosystem. What are the driving forces? What are the local content that we can put into our work? And how can we make sure that we explore new and local partnership to achieve our different objectives? And that brings the other issue of ensuring local collective knowledge, because as individuals, or even as individual organizations, it's not very, we are not sure that we can be doing much in that area. So we need to also increase collaboration locally. And by increasing that collaboration, we should also be in a mood of continuous learning and sharing of our different knowledge. Prioritize local, or I would say reprioritize local, and it applies to all the stakeholders in the ecosystem, being founders, evidence users, producers, rethinking about what we really mean by local, how we make sure that it's a real localization approach that we are taking. And for this to happen, we need to continue investing in our local capacities to make sure that there are capacities in place to drive that localization agenda. Finally, we also recognize the significance of our youth, of young people in the ecosystem or in the network, which brings me to the panel that we want to have. As you recall, we start the conference with an all-women panel. And then after that, I went to the second room, and then we see an all-men panel. I thought it was a response, but it was not done by design. It was just a coincidence. So we started the conference with that panel, and those leaders shared with us what is their experience in the EIDM ecosystem so far. I will not say about the past, but also about the present. But now we want to see what the future would look like. So we put together a very nice panel, and we think we can create great discussions to see, out of the 3 days of conference, of meeting that we have, what can we expect from the conference and for the next 2, 5, or 10 years. So I'm sharing the panel with Charity from the Africa Evidence Network, Hazel Zaranyika, Program Officer at the Africa Evidence Network, Andile from South African Center for Evidence, Talitha and Ismael. I will let them introduce themselves just take one or 2 minutes to tell us who you are, and maybe how do you fall in love with evidence, and since when? Yeah. Can we start with maybe Ismael?
Okay, that's a tight spot to come first. I would say ladies first. And if you give me the opportunity, I would pass the microphone to Talitha. I've been here just once, and for those who we've not interacted yet, my name is Ismael. Kawooya. I work with the Center for Rapid Evidence Synthesis, also known as ACES. And you're welcome. I know this is the last day of the conference, but I'm hoping for the majority you will have the opportunity to go beyond the boundaries of this hotel. There's a lot of beauty out there. I've been given a big task to introduce myself, who I am. I'm just a simple person. I would probably say my background is medicine and epidemiology. I honestly don't remember how I fell in love with evidence. Sometimes it feels like I've always been here, which might defeat when you say emerging leaders, and I'm saying it feels like I've always been here. I think I'm quickly getting to be a relic also, and it's just about time to say things about myself. But I think my love for evidence, or being in the space of trying to see how we use research, was through mentoring and working with the right person to show me the ropes. And for that, I thank Rhona. I'm sure everyone in this room acknowledges that name. And yeah, and walking with her through the journey has taught me a lot, and I've gained quite a lot of perspectives within the field, and basically that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andile Madonsela, and I work as a managing researcher at the South Africa Center for Evidence, but I also work as a gender and evidence lead. It has been such a joy having all of you here for the past 3 days. So how I fell in love with evidence, or why I fell in love with evidence. So maybe this dates back to when I was younger. So I had very great ambitions of ending poverty. So I thought, I myself, just one person, I had the potential of ending poverty, the world poverty, that is. So I was young and I looked at everyone, I was like, what are they doing? I can do it, right? So all I needed was to grow a bit more. So I needed just a few years, and then I'll just solve it, right? But then when I actually grew, I realized, oh, okay, it's not as easy as I thought, right? But then I realized that it's not, all hope is not lost. So what then that means is that I have to contribute, right? So I'm not gonna end world hunger by myself, but I can make that contribution, right? And then what happened is that I got a random job, and in this random job, they assigned me 80 abstracts, and they were like, okay, look at this inclusion criteria, look at this abstract, and I was doing that random stuff. But then as I did this random stuff of looking at abstracts and inclusion criteria, I realized that by doing that very random stuff, I am contributing towards fighting poverty and inequality, right? And I also realized that not only am I fighting against poverty and inequality, but also it gives me an opportunity as well to fight against other social issues that I've always felt strongly about. So over the years, I've done quite a lot of work that focuses on gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa. And it is through that random stuff that I'm able to do that work. So that is how I fell in love with evidence, when I realized that actually evidence links very closely to my passions and the issues that I feel very strongly about. So my younger self would be very disappointed in me, because what do you mean you have not stopped world hunger? What are you doing with your life? But I think I have not deviated too much away from that mission. I think I'm on my way. So I still have the potential to do it. So be on the lookout.
Good afternoon. My name is Talitha Mpando, and I'm the Executive Director for PAX Africa. So I wasn't quite as ambitious as Andile, but okay, so I have a background in public health, and I could say that's where I fell in love with evidence. So I became interested in social determinants of health, upstream determinants of health in particular. And I realized that there was quite a lot of information out there a lot of research had been done, and I began to interrogate whether or not certain stakeholders, such as funders or the government, were making use of this evidence. And when I looked at the funding allocations made to specific sectors that influenced health, I was not able to see a link between the evidence that was out there and the decisions that were being made. So that's when I began to ask why, what are the reasons why evidence is not being used. And I could say that's how I got into EIDM. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Afternoon, sorry. So, as the first Africa Evidence Network coordinator some years back, I guess I had no choice but to fall in love with evidence, as I had to help grow a network of evidence producers, intermediaries, and users, and everyone else in the evidence ecosystem. My background is development studies, and I'm passionate about driving change in societies through contributing to evidence production useful for policy in Africa. I believe that such evidence is useful in informing and driving policy decisions. And also, having been a coordinator for the Africa Evidence Network, I believe that relationships, connections, and collaborations are key to driving evidence-informed decision-making in Africa. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I'm used to being first, so it feels so weird to be last. But anyway, my name is Charity Chisoro, and I'm a program officer with the Africa Evidence Network. I think I'm almost like Hazel. I was part of the AEN. Actually, I joined in 2016 as a master's intern at Evidence 2016 conference in Pretoria. Then I had to do some work for the AEN. So how could I not fall in love with evidence? So that's how it all started. But with me, it was also a platform for me to be able to achieve my passions that I had always had as I was growing. Not as ambitious as Andile, but to contribute to ending poverty and inequality in society. I'd always been someone who wanted to have a positive change in society, so I felt like this is an opportunity for me to do it through the Africa Evidence Network. So that's how I fell in love with evidence, and I'm still in love with evidence. Thank you.
I hope you can hear me with this one. Okay, thank you very much. As you can see, we have a very diverse group of leaders, and who are today in this session our different panelists. They showcase different stories, different storyline in terms of how they get into the evidence world. But one thing that I very much like, which is common for all of the panelists, is how they are all trying to link up the evidence work to real development impact. It's not something that happens very often. Many people are working in the evidence ecosystem, and the biggest impact is to publish in a very good journal, which is, for me and for us in this ecosystem, not an impact. And you can see how they are linking up their work on evidence to real issues, food security, health, and how we can increase human development on the continent. So you see me presenting some key emerging topics, and by the way, thanks to Ruth and team for putting this together. But as I had mentioned, it's just some initial ideas that we think could be important to raise in this conference. But I want you to also share with us, out of the 3 days of the conference, what struck you the most in Evidence 2023? What surprised you? Or I would say, what is your key theme out of the 3 days of discussion? That's one part of my question. The second part is also going out from this conference, how do you see the future of evidence in Africa, and what are the key elements that you see emerging? Now we want to start, and I will not start with Ismael this time. You'll be last. Can we start with Charity or Hazel? Let's start with Charity, as you are the closest to me.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start with what actually struck me the most. So this was actually the willingness of all the delegates that we have here to discuss, to engage, to interact, and also to participate in this conference, which made it very easy to network. So I believe this is mainly because of the relationships that we have built maybe over the years or even over these few days, and that's brought like an element of trust among us. So I feel like it's all have been about collaborating and working together. So that is what struck me the most from Evidence 2023. And then in terms of the personal key theme, from Evidence 2023, I think, as I've said, it's about collaboration. So I'll say collaborating beyond the local level. So instead of just collaborating at the local level, then we should go beyond that. So that will be my personal key theme for Evidence 2023. All right. Okay, so for now, I'll end now, then I'll tell you about the future after this. I'll hand over to Hazel.
Thank you. So what struck me the most were the enriching discussions that came from the various sessions that we had in this event, both from the plenary as well as the parallel sessions. And for me, it's the importance of evidence from citizens and communities and how this matters, and how in almost every session there was talk about how we need to connect with communities and citizens to improve decision-making in Africa. So I think for me, we really, going forward, we need to engage communities and put together evidence that tells their stories and experiences. So community voices for policy actions, and I'll elaborate further as we discuss. Thank you.
For me, one of the things that stood out was the amount of innovation that was highlighted during this conference. I think the organizing team did a really good job in having that innovation hub, just to showcase how players within this field are coming up with different solutions to the challenges that we face in EIDM. So if you had a chance to go to that, to the hub, you got to ask questions, you got to interact with the people who are, coming up with these innovations. And also specifically the use of technology. I remember when I was presenting and there someone came and asked me, so how exactly is it that you're using technology? So it just goes to show that ICT is also having its big moment right now, and there's an opportunity to make use of it, especially in the EIDM space. So this is in terms of production of evidence, synthesis of evidence, as well as creating evidence products. This morning, I had a chance to listen to the talk where we got to see the global evidence map, and that's just a tool that is useful for everyone in this room. Yesterday, in the real world there was a session on reward evidence, and one of the things that was highlighted was a dashboard where data was entered, and decision makers and policy makers were able to access the data in real time and make decisions based off that. So just what I've seen is a lot of out-of-the-box thinking, and yeah, just a willingness to not dwell on the challenges, but to think creatively about how we can go about addressing them. And this is applicable not only to the individuals, but I think there's opportunity to collaborate in that.
Thank you. You are all very tough acts to follow. But then I think what struck me the most during this specific conference was the launch of the Africa Evidence Youth League. A shout out to all the youth leaguers that are in the room. That definitely struck me the most. I think it's quite impressive that we were able to bring together 45 young people from 13 different countries within the continent, all coming together with the common goal of coming up with creative solutions to the problems that are facing the continent through the use of evidence. I thought that was quite impressive. And also the launch of the Africa Evidence Youth League was centered around creating relationships. So I can confirm that we were able to build those relationships, and I think that they will be long-lasting. I have been challenged to learn how to speak Swahili. I've been challenged to learn how to speak French. So chances are on the next evidence, I will not be speaking English, I'm sorry. I was also told that I will fit in very nicely in Kenya. Apparently Kenyans are very energetic and so I was told that I'll fit in very nicely in Kenya. So if South Africa does not work out for me, I know my next home. I know 13 young people from Kenya, so I'm good to go. I might be going to Kenya. And I also think that in the coming years, we will look back and think, wait, when did all of this start? And we will remember that. Remember when we met in Uganda, all of us, for the first time? Oh my gosh, we were so young. So I think we have built... So I think we have been successful as well in building those relationships. Also, it's quite important that I point out that we did not only come here to build relationships and have a lot of fun, but we were also building something. So we started working on the manifesto for the Youth League, and it's very impressive, if I have to say so myself, right? And then I'm really looking forward to what we are going to produce with the Youth League. So I think everyone in this room should also be looking forward to what we are about to do. I think you will be very much impressed, if I do say so myself again. So I'm really honored to have been given the opportunity to coordinate those young people, and I'm really honored that you all came here, and looking forward to continue to build with all of you. Over to you.
Well, I think everyone agrees that Andile is going to change the world. And I'm honored to be on the stage with her. Though the irony is she talks about Kenya and not Uganda. Yet, exactly. You start here. This is where you are. All right, what stuck out for me? I'm sure everyone agrees who was here on the first day. The performance was amazing. Yeah. To me, that was the highlight. And the conference started off with a bang. But looking at and thinking about that performance, I kept thinking, Africa leads and lags behind at the same time. We have a lot of innovations, but we mostly leave these at the innovation stage and they don't go beyond. So to me, that stuck out for me. Then there's been quite a lot of discussions, and this has been going on for some time, but also during the conference, the interest in knowing if what we do actually works. We're pushing evidence for policy, but does it work? How do you know it works? So much is being talked about impact, development impact. What are the outcomes? So to me, that still becomes a key point. and what do we need to do to actually show evidence-informed decision-making works. We know it works. I don't have to convince the room here, but the policymakers that we need to get on board definitely need to be on the same page with us. And I think we need to work on that. The other part is bringing the policymakers on stage for discussions as peers. I think quite a number of times we talk to policymakers like as if, what's the word? We are the scientists, or you the knowledge producers, you know best. We use words like they don't know what evidence is, they don't even understand it. But I think this conference, bringing the policymakers here and having real discussions about what really goes on, and actually learning that there are a lot of structures that they've actually put in place, and we may need to work within those structures or see if they need to be dismantled, well and good, but at least acknowledge that there's quite a lot that they're also doing. And definitely, from what Andile has also mentioned, the diversity in the room just here, I'm sure there are quite a number of countries represented here. And not just countries, the skills and the backgrounds here. And for me, it's the opportunity for the multidisciplinary work. Someone asked me yesterday, in yesterday's panel, we had a discussion of what do you do if you get a question in development economics? A medical doctor, what do I do? Of course, I have to work with a development economics to get that question done. So having that and leveraging on the different skills that are available, so that will also mean bringing more people on board. I don't think 200 or 500 people will change much. You've moved quite a lot, but I think we need to do a lot more to bring others on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Many topics, very, very interesting, coming out from the... hello, can you hear me? Ah, okay. Okay, great. So many topics coming in, and you can see they very much align with some of the elements that I presented earlier. The first group of things that I see is how the conference actually happens. The collaboration, the relationship that we create here, the relationship that we developed, that we were already working on maybe, and this conference helped us to strengthen. So thank you very much for raising that. The other thing I can also mention is the need for us to make sure that the work that we are doing is citizen-driven, is based on the needs of the communities. We also hear from the panelists about the innovations. We've been doing this for some years now, so it's very good to do some inward looking and see what is working, what is not working, what are the new innovative tools that we can use to achieve the impact we are looking for, how we can think creatively. We also hear about the diversity in the room. A good mention about the diversity in terms of age, in terms of young people, but diversity also in this room is beyond that. You could see how many countries are represented here, how many cultures, I can imagine, how many women we have in the room, how many men we have. So in terms of also where we are coming from, is it from the producing space, the brokering space, or the using space? We have a good diversity in the room. And I very much also agree with Ismael on the art performance. When I was looking at it at the very first day, I was asking myself if we are not missing up a good way of conveying, of communicating our evidence or how we usually work. We Africans, we very much like art performance, but we take it as just an entertainment moment. Maybe it can also be something that we embed in our work. So thank you very much for bringing those key aspects. Before I continue with the panel, I want to check in the plenary if there is one or two, there are one or two people who want to share with us what struck them the most in the conference. What is your key theme that you think has not been discussed so far from my presentation and also from the input of the colleagues on stage? Just one or two. So one there, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, thank you very much. We'll start with you. Yeah. A very quick one.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman. Very quick ones. I don't want to present myself against Sergeric Yakodiam. I'm from Cameroon. 2020, I got the opportunity, and then I want to thank African Evidence to acknowledge my leadership also as award. So that was great indeed. So one key things, along what I'm seeing in Africa, about we have to continue pushing, is to acknowledging African leaders. So if there's one thing among what we are doing, the evidence teams, we should keep this as a priority. I've been in many countries in the world, and in Africa particularly, we fail to acknowledge African leaders. I think maybe as a takeaway or as advice for the futures, to see how we can enlarge this initiative to recognize leaders in a specific development area. Now we have a global leader, but we have specific leaders like in education, health, environment, politics, because we always have to keep aside the political side. They are leaders in the political side. I saw my sisters, the way we are speaking, you are a driver. You are driving leaders to take people to see the power. So this is the best thing for me we have to keep for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Someone is there? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Quick reflections. One, I think we can't help but be amazed at the innovations that have been presented in this conference. We have listened to really, creative innovations that are trying to solve the problem. And one of them has been the disconnect, or rather the gap between the policymaker and the researcher, and looking at ways in which that can be bridged, also through rapid response to questions and evidence needs, and looking into how can we bring together all these players to communicate, to interact, and engage. Secondly, I think we all understand, and must do so, that we understand the political context with which we work. Many of the lessons must mirror and the contextual differences of our countries. From leaving this hall, we understand that Africa is such a diversity, and each country has its own ways of doing things. But we need to understand how do we penetrate those layers and environments to make our work have impact, but also to achieve the goals that we have. I think that's my greatest reflection.
Thank you very much. Yeah. There was one hand there.
Thank you. My name is Enoch. I was one of the panelists, but what I want to highlight is the topic on decoloniality is a very topical issue. And on the first day of presentation, there was a bit of silence in the room, but it is a very critical topic to ask. These are the conversations that are uncomfortable, but that we need to start. The decolonization movement is here, and it has to continue. And this SAEN, we are taking the lead, and we need to take this conversation forward and take the bold steps. One of the questions that I encountered as an online moderator was where would the public or the membership find this evidence, this publication, this whatever resources in an accessible format? Unfortunately, due to time, it was not well addressed. So this might be the other areas which AEN had to look into, so that to make this publication, this evidence, more available in terms of access, not in these highly expensive, peer-reviewed global north publications. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Key theme, decoloniality, accessibility. Yeah. Let's move now to my left. There was one hand there, and after you. Yeah.
Thank you. I suppose I'm just reiterating what Andile touched on, and that's the fact that I think it's been really exciting to be in a room full of Africans who are here for the same purpose and the same cause, as opposed to just being like in Kenya, surrounded by other Kenyans discussing the same topic, or being the only Kenyan amongst a bunch of other Ugandans, for example. So I've really enjoyed the fact that so many Africans are here and that we're all on this page together. Thanks.
Sorry, here, then, yeah, on the front.
Thank you. Being an African, I think what actually struck me most throughout was coming up, localization and coming up with homegrown solutions. I can say, if you are not with us, then it's not for us. We need to build the Africa we want. Also, we need to be where it's happening so that we take ownership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very last one. There was a hand just in the middle there.
Yeah, thank you. Similar to her, the localization, decolonization, learning to set our agenda, and so that we reduce dependence on the global north. I think that struck me a lot. But also on the policy, the responsiveness, that the evidence should be timely and responsive to the policy needs of the day. I think that one struck me a lot. My name is Peter Babienda, School of Economics, Makerere University.
Thank you very much. Thanks all for the great contribution to complement what we've been hearing from the panel. Let me now come back to my panelists on the second part of my question. As we discussed now for 3 days, where do you see the future going? Where do we go from here? And what are the key elements that you see emerging in the future of evidence production, brokering, and using on the continent? I will start with Charity.
Okay, thank you. So with me, I've got basically 3 points about the future of evidence. The future is not only promising, but it's also bright. But we have a lot of work to do. So the first point is around institutionalization of evidence. So I think most of you are aware what institutionalization of evidence is all about. But I'll try and give you like a layman term, because with me, I really struggled with that term at first after reading so many articles. But it's just basically about how do you embed evidence in your everyday routine. For example, in government, to make sure that they use evidence every day. So that's basically what that big word means. So institutionalization of evidence is, I feel like it's a dominant theme worldwide. So it's one of the things we should look forward to in terms of the future of evidence. And we need to make sure that evidence is available easily and accessible. As someone was saying with the delegates, that evidence should be accessible, and it should also be used to make decisions. So if we look at the World Health Organization, they've got the EVIPNet. I think someone spoke about it in the morning. And this is just basically a global initiative which embraces the cutting-edge approaches to knowledge translation for better health policy making. So those are some of the ways that can be used to make sure that we institutionalize evidence use. And then there are different levels of institutionalization. For example, the local level, the provincial level, the national level, and then at the continental level. So I'll just give an example in South Africa that there is actually some progress in terms of the national level. And this is their example of the SEAs. I think some of you know the SEAs, the social impact assessments that are done to ensure that evidence is institutionalized at that level. So one thing we need to push for is to make sure that we have processes to follow and that there are structures in place for this to happen. And then what I've realized is that in many countries, like in the health sector, there is a lot of progress, but not in the other fields. So it would be good to look at how do we institutionalize evidence use in the other fields or in the other sectors, of which I think is something that most of us here are trying to do, because very little has been done at the local level as well, like in South Africa, if you look at it. But at the provincial level, it's actually starting now. So there are some projects that are being done to ensure that evidence is institutionalized. And we need to look at how can we institutionalize EIDM at the continental level. And maybe looking at the African Union, this is something that they can also help with. And as the AEN, we can actually put our heads together to support this cause, the institutionalization of evidence use. But we need to make sure that there is awareness first before we can get into that. Then my second point in terms of how the future looks like is in terms of big data. So this is automatically collected data, but at times we do nothing with the data. So we need to make sure that we put it together, which will enable us to use the data to become part of the evidence package. So I know there is artificial intelligence, you know, with the ChatGPT, things like that. So it's something we need to make sure that in the future we make use of more so that people can use evidence in decision making. Then the last point, I think some people have spoke about it, like the lady here, it's about localized knowledge. This is having an Africa-specific element in terms of evidence. So this is something that we would really like to have more in the future. And we need to make sure that we look at how are we making local knowledge part of the evidence ecosystem. The stakeholder knowledge, and for example, in terms of participatory democracy, mini publics, and we can do this by drawing on local communities and bringing that into the process of decision making. So I think the future is really bright, but we have a lot of work to do, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will just start from the last point that Charity pointed out about participatory decision-making, and also hinging from citizens' participation. So I think that once citizens are aware that they have a voice and their voice matters in issues that affect their lives, they will become more engaged and more receptive to evidence producers. I will give a good example of recent elections that took place in Zimbabwe. For me, that was just clear evidence that citizens are increasingly becoming aware of the voice that they have that can lead to change in their communities and in their societies. So for me, I would say that it's important to continue engaging with citizens and making them aware that whatever it is that they say in relation to what affects their lives matters. Looking to the future, increased evidence narratives and experiences from citizens and communities will enrich the evidence ecosystem through knowledge and information of what's happening on the ground, and will assist researchers, policymakers, and intermediaries to not only collect real-life experiences, but also stories that can be used to inform policy decisions. Therefore, we have to be intentional in the way that we engage with these communities. We should base our connections on trust. We should base our connections on relationships, and also just to agree with what he said concerning eBase. I thought that was a good demonstration through the storytelling approach that showed us that the voices of communities matter and they need to be heard. ACRES has citizen panels as well, and these have been very influential in bringing evidence to the fore. So, just in conclusion, we need to continue exploring and implementing various approaches on ways in which we bring community and the voice of citizens to the fore through the evidence that we share. This will enrich the way we produce and share evidence for EIDM in Africa. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So earlier I had highlighted just how much technology is being used in the space of EIDM, but I think there's also a growing awareness that you have to treat it with some level of caution. I think this was highlighted especially in the keynote address with regards to issues around AI and how that sometimes comes with its own biases. So I think going into the future, there will be an increased awareness of the need to think about the equity issues that come with using such tools such as AI. And that has to do with more transparency into the processes that go into it, finding out whether or not it's valid for your specific context, and just exploring any biases that might be implicit within the tools. And on that note, so technology is very useful, very helpful. It has made things much faster, but it's not to be used as a solution for everything. So you need IT solutions for IT problems. And I think that's one of the things that has actually been highlighted in this conference pretty well, where especially here in Africa, where we have, as highlighted by one of the audience members, that we are very diverse. So we have different contexts, different cultures, different languages. So we need to be in a place where we don't approach innovation from a one-size-fits-all perspective, but we need to look at our specific contexts to find out what exactly it is works for us, while still drawing on the experiences of others, but making sure that whatever innovations that we put forward fit our context. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think at this point it has been well established that I'm a big, big dreamer. So I absolutely love this question. So in my response, I have two thoughts. And my first thought, I am plagiarizing from Prof. Ruth Stewart. So I was interviewing her for my AEN podcast, and I asked her about the future, and she said she does not know, and that is what is very exciting about this space. So that's my first thought. But then for my second thought, I have a request of some kind. So as much as I said yes, I brought here 45 young people, they are not very young. So they are youngish. So I'd like to ask all of us to then start employing very young people, bring very young people into the space. Where are the 20-year-olds? Where are the 21-year-olds? Where are the 22-year-olds? They are not here. So if you are a director of an organization or you have some decision-making power, please ensure that we have 20-year-olds in these spaces because they are the future of EIDM. So as much as we are advancing the technology, we are doing 4IR, chances are we'll get to 10IR at some point, we will always need warm bodies that will continue to advocate for EIDM. We will need people that will continue to preach the importance of EIDM. So I would like to pledge with all of you here today that can we please have young people in this space, very young people, not youngish people, right? And then with that ask, I have some few rules as well. So first thing, you're hiring them, right? But then after you've hired them, the first thing that you have to do is to make sure that that space is enabling. Don't hire these young people and then you yourself, you become a barrier. Make sure that you create enabling spaces. I think Ruth has been saying to me as I was planning this launch, what do you need? How can I help? Create those enabling spaces. And then also share the knowledge that you have learned over the years. We can't be learning the same lesson over and over again. So ensure that you share all the lessons that you've acquired over the years. And you know very well also that you're about to retire. You always tell us, I'm about to retire in 2 years. I'm about to retire in 5 years. Who is going to take over? Who's going to take over? All right? And then after sharing your knowledge, be open to new approaches as well. Because maybe I might suggest that the best way to disseminate research is through TikTok. And I might be very right because you are not on the ground. You don't know what's hip, what's happening. But I do, right? So be open as well to learning new things and sort of accepting new approaches of doing things. But also, it might be a terrible idea using TikTok. So again, we ask for grace, right? So once you've hired the young people, my rules are create enabling spaces, share your knowledge, be open to new approaches, but also we need grace so that if the TikTok idea is a flop, we try again, we try something else. So the future is young.
Well, I'm not sure how to top that. Probably Andile should have been the last speaker. But in my view, when someone asks, what does the future look like? It draws back to a text I read a while back. Andile said youngish. Probably I'm above that youngish group. And I think it was probably at the beginning of the previous century, and these very brilliant scientists were being asked to predict what the 21st century is going to look like. And one of them said it's going to be terrible. The number of horses and where they're going to put their, what horses put out, and the congestion on the streets, it's just not going to happen. How are these people going to live? Well, I don't have to convince you how wrong that person was, and he was a very brilliant scientist. So predicting the future is quite hard, very difficult. Actually, most of the time when we try to predict the future, we are wrong. So I'll start from that point and put a caveat. I'll be wrong in what I'm saying. But from that, I also believe if we're thinking about the future, it's really created by the current experiences that we are shaping right now and how we take hold of these opportunities that we have. Andile has well elaborated on the part of the young or the future leaders. We are fortunate Africa has global leaders in this field. I think it's one of the few fields where Africa leads, has quite a number of them. But after them, then what happens? And I think Andile puts that out quite well, that there has to be space to grow the future leaders in this space. We need to work on being more visible. I think coming here and talking to the converted, well, it's good to share what we are all trying to do to get evidence into this space, but we need to work on being more visible, and that might go into reconceptualizing what who is a user. Yesterday, one of the policymakers from Uganda actually said, everyone is a policymaker. We've seen it in these conferences. We've had discussions about communities, people with disabilities, being empowered to take decisions. So it's very important that we reconceptualize who is that leader, who is that person going to use that evidence. Are you just looking at the minister or this senior technocrat in government, or you actually thinking about that this mother of three, single mother, working mother, probably out on the streets every night trying to get a living for her babies, will probably need that evidence that you're trying to put out. Then the other part that I want to put out here is there is a need to break, and I think it's urgent, to break the silos. We're speaking a lot to ourselves, those in health, and I think the map that the SACE team had clearly showed health has quite a lot when it comes to using evidence, but what happens elsewhere? And I don't think it's for the lack of efforts. I think there is still a lot that is being done in other fields, but what is happening there, we don't know, and that has to come out. And we also need to break these silos and work more cooperatively or collaboratively. That also means that there will be more questions about what do we mean by collaborations. I think we've said so much about relationships, but I think we're going to have more real difficult questions and conversations of what are these relationships? Are they beneficial to us? Are they growing my team? Is it hurtful? Is it a harmful relationship that all you need to do is actually stop it? Has it grown to its limits that you need to now move to other ventures? And we need to also think about that. Then lastly, I have two more. We'll need to develop more the science and the art, and I still draw this back from the South African team. They've been doing quite a lot in thinking about the science and art, but also I think we're all doing it, but we need to talk about it and put it out there. Are we talking about the theories, the mechanisms or frameworks, or we think whatever we do is boxed within this whole frameworks that the Canadians came up with, and that's all we are trying to follow? Does it actually follow the context within which we are working? How best do we work with the people that we are trying to support to use evidence better? And that also means in that way you have to develop a shared understanding of the field and where it's growing. Then lastly, we've been talking about artificial intelligence, and the previous panel, someone said ChatGPT might be the death of us, but I also think probably not. We're probably in the initial excitement of that, and after that excitement, it will taper off, and I guess it will continue. As we know Google, some people know it, others don't. It's not unusual to find someone who doesn't know how to Google, an adult. So it will not be unusual to find someone who will have no idea about ChatGPT. But these technologies also widen the inequality and the inequities. If we're talking about access to evidence, I'm sure there are conversations of groups here trying to use artificial intelligence to make evidence more available, more accurate. But as we're doing that, we have to be aware that it might have the unintended consequence of widening the inequities and inequalities within the groups that we are working with. That's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We don't know much about the future, I agree, but it's a human exercise to always try to predict, and then we see we were wrong or we were partly true, but it's in our nature. I will go back to the plenary. Any burning thoughts on how do you think the future is, one or two, and I would very much like to get feedback from members of the Youth League. Are you? Members from the Youth League first. Or if you don't, those who are not that very youngish can take the place. Okay, maybe you can start and they will come later. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Martin Mwale. I'm the head of evaluations for Malawi government. Yeah. All right, thank you very much. I'm Martin Mwale, the head of evaluations for Malawi government. There's one statement that has struck me the most from the panelist. It's the lady on the middle. She said, citizens are becoming increasingly aware about their influence in policy making, or their voices, the use of their voices in development programming. That is an advantage that we can leverage on as evidence generators. Often, how do we disseminate our findings, evidence findings? We target policymakers. Sometimes maybe we target politicians, but through the policymakers. But these people, they often formulate policies and development practices through incentives of what the citizens are demanding. We have a job to equip what the citizens are demanding. So our dissemination strategies for the evaluation findings or evidence, we should not only target those in offices, we should also target those in the communities. When I say communities, I don't mean these communities. We should target those who cannot come to Protea Hotel to understand the evidence which is going around. Because those are the ones who the policymakers want to impress. So we should equip them so that they demand the right development, equipping them through the evidence, dissemination of our evidence even to those ones. So this is an assignment for all of us to think of innovative ways of also disseminating our findings to those ones who provide us the evidence. Most times we go to communities to collect data, but we don't come back to tell them what the results were of the information they were providing. But these are the people who have much influence to change the way the policymakers or politicians behave more than us. We can struggle to go to a political office to convince them to change a certain policy or modify something because they are thinking about those people. Let's equip those people to demand the right type of development. So our dissemination, I'm not saying we should stop holding conferences in Protea hotels and stuff. We should continue, and actually we need more conferences. But on the other end, we should also try to think of other innovative ways of disseminating our evidence to those people who politicians or policymakers quickly listen to. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. 1, 2. Yes, I recognize you.
Yeah.
But can we do just 1 minute?
Yes, I will.
Each, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Remy Ayedi from Pasga in Nairobi. One important suggestion that I have moving forward is what we do with the innovations in the incubation sector. I think it will be very useful for us to also have an award for the best innovative project in that place. Because I'm impressed by what I found there. Because my main concern has always been, how do we make the use of evidence a culture in public spaces? Yeah. And I think that would really help. So by making an award out of that, we can also think about how to take those innovations beyond this conference into practical places where they can be utilized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just 1 minute here and 1 minute there, we are done here.
Hello, everyone. I'm a member of AEYL. Yeah. I am still youngish. Yeah, about the future as a researcher, I'm really worried about the fatigue that our respondents have. You go to collect data, and these people are really tired of being extracted data from. And now we are bringing the RCTs. They are coming up so rapidly. And they are they may give us good data, but people are tired of them. You find someone working, you get data out of them. I think it gets back to the dissemination. We never get back to them. But I feel, don't you think the futures we are getting data from these people, we are taking advantage of them. We are not protecting them. We are using them. And for me, I feel when I sit back, I feel like, okay, I'm a researcher, I'm doing my part, but I feel like I'm extracting something. I'm taking advantage of my respondents to collect what I need to write a report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good food for thought. A last comment from there? Yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you. I think I'm not youngish. First, it's my first time to attend the evidence. And my takeaway home is two things. My takeaway to Kenya things are two things. I'm so passionate about localization or how can we make made in African thing. Two things. The future of evidence is luminous if we do two things. I'm not well in policy, but I'm so selective about the methodology things. We can only shift power to Pan-Africa if we collaborate or we work on two things. How can we make the policy and the research side work together? And I've been having a lot of challenges because from the Benin on policy and the Uganda policy, so they're saying there's a lot of challenges. And we can only shift power to Pan-Africa if we have our own history. Majority of you are purely a researcher. How many people in Africa have the whole the African history or fact? That is the question you should ask yourself. So our future looks luminous if we own our own history fact across the African continent. And we can do well if we collaborate the policy side and the research side. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Sorry, we have to stop there, yeah. Dear panelists, any final thought that you want to share before we conclude? Not everyone, but if you have something to share with us. You don't, right? Thank you very much. Sorry, please, we need to, I'm looking at my timer here and I still have 2 minutes left. We promised to keep in the time. We are online and we want to really to keep it here. Let us continue the discussion. I think we had a very, very good session, session 22, which is a kind of the technical wrap-up for the conference. We rediscussed a bit the key thematic issues: decoloniality, localization, institutionalization, very important, the role of technologies, the need for us to understand what is the political process. We tend often not to be very much aware of it, but it's very, very important. Thank you very much, dear panelists, for sharing your thoughts, your views, and your perspective for the future. It has been a very good session, and I also want to thank all the audience for your input. This is just a conversation that we should continue having and making sure that as a community we continue to discuss about what are the best ways, what are the innovative approaches for us to make sure that evidence is embedded in our culture. Yeah. So I would like to thank you very much and invite now Siziwe again for the very, very last session. Thank you very much.